Good afternoon, I'm Kelly Hutchings with Craving Cinematics, and today we're going to do our first installment of Craving Cinematic Remembers, which is where we take one of our favorite stars and from the past, way past, and do a little history on their career and why they influenced us. So today, my favorite star is Audrey Hepburn, and I am all about everything Audrey, including the name of my car, which is Audrey, to the way I try to dress and the way I try to interact with other people. So, if you're a big Audrey fan, or even if you're not and would like to learn a little bit more about Audrey Hepburn, sit back and enjoy Audrey Hepburn with Craving Cinematic Remembers. Audrey Hepburn was born Audrey Kathleen Hepburn Royston on May 4, 1929, in Brussels, Belgium. Her mother, Ella von Hemstra, was a Dutch baroness. Audrey's father, Joseph Victor Anthony Hepburn Royston, was born in Uzes, Bohemia, and worked in business. After her parents divorced, Audrey went to London with her mother, where she went to a private girls' school. While she vacationed with her mother in Arnhem, the Netherlands, Hitler's army took over the town. It was here that she fell on hard times during the Nazi occupation. Audrey Hepburn's activism during World War II was always part of her official biography. The British-born actress moved to Holland during the war because her Dutch mother believed that they would be safe in a country that had pledged to stay neutral. The Nazis invaded anyway. Hepburn, like millions of others, nearly starved when the Nazis cut off food supplies. Her envied slender figure was the result of being malnourished during her adolescence. According to legend, the teenaged Hepburn did what she could to support the resistance. During her screen test for Roman Holiday, she recalled performing ballet for audiences that were afraid to applaud because they didn't want the Nazis to catch them. She donated the money she earned from her recitals to the resistance. Like many other Dutch children, she occasionally acted as a courier, delivering papers and money from one group of resistance workers to another. Children were given this work because the Nazis were unlikely to search them. Hepburn's Hollywood handlers would publicize her bravery during the war, but they did their best to hide the fact that her parents were rooting for the Nazis. Hepburn's father, Joseph, who abandoned her when she was a little girl, and her mother, Ella, were members of the British Union of Fascists. In 1935, they toured Germany with other members of the organization, including the notorious Mitford sisters, British aristocrats who were jailed for their Nazi sympathies. After Hepburn's parents divorced, Ella returned to Germany to attend the Nuremberg rallies and wrote an enthusiastic account of the experience for fascist magazine, The Black Shirt. Joseph was investigated by the British House of Commons for receiving seed money to start a newspaper from Germans with ties to Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels. He was imprisoned as an enemy of the state for the duration of the war. During the 1950s, it would have been disastrous for Hepburn's squeaky clean image if it were known that her parents were Nazi sympathizers. By today's standards, her rejection of her parents' racist ideology makes her even more admirable. After the liberation, she went to a ballet school in London on a scholarship and later began a modeling career. As a model, she was graceful, and it seemed she had found her niche in life until the film producers discovered her. In 1948, after being spotted modeling by a producer, she was signed to a bit part in the European film Dutch in 7 Lessons.
Jij, wie ben jij eigenlijk?
Ik ben stewardess bij de KLM.
Daar zie je niks naar uit.
Dutch in 7 Lessons. This was in 1948. Later, she had a speaking role in the 1951 film The Young Wives' Tale as Eve Lester. The part still wasn't much, so she headed to America to try her luck there. Audrey gained immediate recognition in the U.S. with her role in Roman Holiday, in 1953. This film turned out to be a smashing success, and she won an Oscar as Best Actress. Roman Holiday co-star Gregory Peck insisted that Hepburn receive the same top billing on the film, a project that she was almost overlooked for entirely. Producers initially imagined Elizabeth Taylor in the role, but the director, William Wyler, was so impressed by Hepburn's screen test that he opted to cast the relatively unknown actress in the lead instead.
I want you down here without your hands in your pockets and settle down in that chair and we'll make a nice close-up of you. Seriously, Audrey, tell us about the war. You spent the whole war in Arnhem.
Yes.
Wasn't it pretty awful?
Yes, it was very bad.
But did you entertain the people there yourself? Is that how you began?
No, not quite how I began. I went to ballet school once I knew I was settled there for quite a while. Didn't know how long the war was going to last, so I went to ballet school and learned to dance. And in about 1944, about a year before the end of the war, I was quite capable of performing. And it was a sort of some way in which I could make some contribution, and I did give performances to collect money for the underground, which always needed money.
And what about the Germans? What did they do about it?
Let's know about it.
As part of Peck's contract, the film was originally set to feature his name above the title, with "Introducing Audrey Hepburn" to follow beneath in smaller font. Soon after the filming began, Peck made a phone call to his agent and requested otherwise. "The real star of the picture is Audrey Hepburn," Peck said. "We all knew that this was going to be an important star, and we began to talk off camera about the chance that she might win an Academy Award in her first film." The moment was also, in part, thanks to her legendary screen test. When the actress performed a scene from the film, the cameramen were told to keep things rolling after the director said cut. Several minutes of unscripted Hepburn was captured on film.
The mouth of truth. The legend is that if you're given to lying, you put your hand in there, it'll be bitten off.
Oh, what a hard idea.
Let's see you do it.
Let's see you do it.
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's go. Look out!
And the end result won her the part. She was absolutely delightful, Wyler said when he saw the test. Acting, looks, and personality. Other important films include Sabrina, 1954, for which she received another Academy nomination, and Love in the Afternoon, 1957, which also garnered rave reviews. In 1959, she received yet another nomination for her role in the 1959 The Nun Story. Hepburn first suggested Hubert de Givenchy to design the costumes for Sabrina. While Edith Head was originally enlisted for the position and would ultimately take credit, the film's director, Billy Wilder, said the change of plans came from the leading lady. The actress expressed her adoration for fashion on the set of Sabrina. "Clothes are positively a passion for me," she told a reporter. I love them to a point where it is practically a vice. Fortunately, Paramount allowed Hepburn to incorporate the costumes into her own closet, a habit she kept throughout her collaboration with Givenchy for the remainder of her career, including Funny Face, 1957, Love in the Afternoon, also 1957, and Breakfast at Tiffany's, 1961. Givenchy gave me a look, a kind, a silhouette, she once said. He kept this spare style that I love. What is more important than a simple sheath made in an extraordinary way, in a special fabric, and just 2 earrings. Truman Capote wanted Marilyn Monroe to play Holly Golightly in the film adaptation of his 1958 novella Breakfast at Tiffany's. Paramount double-crossed me in every way and cast Audrey, the author has said. It was the most miscast film I've ever seen. Monroe passed on the role, reportedly because it was bad for her image. Marilyn Monroe will not play a lady of the evening, her acting coach, Paula Strasberg, said. Hepburn also had her own misgivings. I hesitated a long time before accepting the part, she said prior to the film's release. It's very difficult, and I didn't think I was right for it. I have to operate entirely on instinct. It was Blake Edwards who finally persuaded me. He at least is perfect cast as a director, and I discovered his approach emphasized the same sport of spontaneity as my own. The actress added, I should be a stylish Holly Golightly, even if that's all I can contribute. Hepburn has said that Breakfast at Tiffany's scene, where she throws her tabby, named Cat, out of the cab into the rainy streets of New York, is the most distasteful thing she has ever done on film. Hepburn famously owned a Yorkshire Terrier, fittingly named Mr. Famous. See his cameo in Funny Face in the dog basket during the train shot with Anna Karenina, and spent part of her first Hollywood paycheck on a Diamante collar for her beloved friend. She also adopted a baby deer she dubbed Ip, short for Pippin, after on the set of her 1959 film Green Mansions. The animal trainer suggested Hepburn take the fawn home so that it would follow her on screen. After her turn in Tiffany's, animal rescue leagues and pet stores everywhere reported an unprecedented demand for orange cats. If Audrey and Marilyn ever went out for cocktails together, they might have discovered they had a common ex, President John F. Kennedy. When JFK was still an unmarried senator, he dated Hepburn. Their relationship was neither scandalous nor serious. Monroe became Kennedy's mistress during his presidency and famously sang a sultry version of Happy Birthday to him at his birthday party. The next year, Hepburn was the movie star tasked with singing to the president on his birthday. Nobody remembers that far more appropriate performance. The term EGOT is used to describe those rare individuals who have won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony Award. Hepburn is one of the 14 people who have managed this feat. All of her fans know that she won an Oscar for the Best Actress in a leading role for her very first film, Roman Holiday. The next year, she was awarded the Tony for Best Actress in a Drama for her performance in Ondine. Hepburn's Emmy and Grammy are more surprising. She retired from acting long before it became acceptable for movie stars to take TV roles. She won an Emmy for hosting PBS's 1993 documentary series, Audrey Hepburn's Gardens of the World, which, as the title implies, featured avid gardener Hepburn visiting some of the world's most spectacular gardens. The series premiered on January 21st, 1993, the day after her death. It is likely that she got some Emmy votes for sentimental reasons. Hepburn's Grammy was also posthumous. She was considered a mediocre singer. Her voice was infamously dubbed in My Fair Lady because the film's producers felt it was too weak to carry a musical. So it is not surprising that her 1994 Grammy was for Best Spoken Word Album for Children. She won for Audrey Hepburn's Enchanted Tales, which featured her reading classic fairy tales. Hepburn's accolades also include 3 Golden Globe Awards and 3 BAFTAs. Hepburn would probably have been a great Peter Pan. Like Mary Martin, who played the role on Broadway, she was a petite woman who could have looked appropriately boyish, and who certainly could have convincingly portrayed a child's innocence and enthusiasm. It nearly happened. In 1964, following the success of My Fair Lady, Hepburn planned to reunite with George Cukor for a live-action film of the classic musical. Cukor began negotiating with London's Great Ormond Street Hospital for Children, which inherited the rights to the play from playwright J.M. Barrie. Unfortunately, the movie was never made because Disney Studios claimed it had exclusive cinematic rights to Peter Pan. The studio released an animated version of the story in 1953. The hospital launched legal action against Disney. Cukor wrote, "Disney must or should recognize that he's trying to appropriate something for himself that belongs to a hospital for sick children." I don't think he'd cut a very good figure in his eyes or anyone else's if this was generally known. All the more so because he represents wholesome entertainment to the world. The legal matter was not resolved until 1969, long after Cukor and Hepburn's interest had waned. Hepburn had to eat tulip bulbs to survive during World War II. In 1990, her life came full circle when a new hybrid breed of tulip was named after her. According to the Netherlands Flower Information Society, a white flower was named for Hepburn as a tribute to the actress's career and a long-time work on behalf of UNICEF.
Nooit aan zichzelf heeft gedacht. En die voor mij een grote voorbeeld is geweest. Als u het goed vindt, zou ik deze tulp willen geven aan mijn lieve tante Jacqueline, ridder van Oranje Nassau. En nou allemaal naar huis. Dank u wel, ik wil u allemaal bedanken, maar het is te nat.
De burgemeester zal nu een toast uitbrengen.
Oh ja, oké.
Even bij de bloemen, kan dat?
Ja, oh.
Ja, gaan wij een beetje naar achteren.
Ja.
Zo. Ik denk
Neem
even
haar maar mee.
Ja, nee.
Ja.
Hepburn attended the dedication ceremony, which took place at her family's ancestral home in Holland. In Dutch, she expressed her gratitude to the honor. She gave the first official Audrey Hepburn tulip to her elderly aunt, Jacqueline. Descriptions of her beauty and appeal inevitably include the word gamine. She was boyishly slendered, with an aristocratic bearing, the trace of a European accent, and a hint of mischief. Billy Wilder once recalled directing her in the 1957 film Love in the Afternoon. You look around and suddenly there was this dazzling creature looking like a wild-eyed doe prancing in the forest. Everyone on the set was in love within 5 minutes. At the height of her career, she worked with such directors as William Wilder and George Cukor and acted with the great male movie stars of her day, playing the younger woman opposite Gary Cooper, Love in the Afternoon, Cary Grant, Charade, and Rex Harrison in the 1964 movie version of My Fair Lady. Throughout her career, she also took on dramatic roles. She won an Oscar nomination for the title role of a woman questioning her vocation in A Nun Story. She played a woman enduring 20 years of an embattled marriage opposite Albert Finney in Two for the Road, 1967. And she won her 5th Oscar nomination for her role as a blind woman terrorized in her own home in Wait Until Dark. Other nominations were for Sabrina and Breakfast at Tiffany's. After Wait Until Dark, she left full-time acting and lived mostly in Switzerland. Miss Hepburn returned to the screen occasionally. In Robin and Marian, 1976, she played the middle-aged Maid Marian to Sean Connery's Robin Hood. The role was considered a triumph of her later career and a reflection of the graceful way the actress herself had moved into middle age. She also made some poorly received films, including Bloodline, 1979, and They All Laughed, 1981. Even in her last years, she remained a visible presence in the film world. She received a tribute from the Film Society of Lincoln Center in 1991. She was a frequent presenter at the Academy Awards, and the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences presented Audrey and Elizabeth Taylor with the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award. In 1954, she married the actor Mel Ferrer, whom she later co-starred with in War and Peace. They were divorced in 1968. In 1969, she married Andrea Dotti, an Italian psychiatrist from whom she was later divorced. Her companion since 1980 was Robert Wolders, a Dutch actor. She is also survived by two sons, Sean from her marriage to Mr. Ferrer, and Luca from her marriage to Dr. Doty. Audrey Hepburn made her American stage and screen debuts in 1951, and 2 years later, her gamine haircut, her scythe-like shape, and her tomboyish, elegant demeanor in Roman Holiday made her a star and won her an Oscar. UNICEF had benefited greatly from the support of internationally known personalities. Audrey served as Goodwill Ambassador for the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, from 1988 until her untimely death in January 1993. Through her work with UNICEF, she used her image and great interest people had in her to attract world attention to her cause, but also of repaying the United Nations for rescuing her from starvation in 1945 Holland. Audrey's movie career took a back seat to her work for UNICEF, which proved to be more meaningful to her than restarting her acting career. Audrey represented the agencies in many capacities, not only appearing at public occasions to support the good cause of UNICEF, but also traveling widely to the world's troubled spots to assess the situation of children. Audrey's deeply sensitive appeals for children while visiting Ethiopia, Somalia, and the Sudan cannot be forgotten. In 1993, the Academy posthumously gave Hepburn the Jean Holtz Humanitarian Award for her work as UNICEF's ambassador to world's children, a well-deserved tribute to an exceptionally beautiful woman. About her work for UNICEF, Audrey would say, "I've been auditioning my whole life for this role, and I finally got it." Asked about what you really do for UNICEF, she would answer, "My task is to inform, to create awareness of the needs of children. Oh, it would be nice to be an expert on education, economics, politics, religions, traditions, and cultures. I'm none of those, but I am a mother, and I will travel." Working for UNICEF, she would provide an increase to the fundraising campaigns of the national UNICEF committees everywhere. Audrey Hepburn, the actress who epitomized Hollywood chic in the 1950s and 60s, passed away in her home in Tolla-Chenaz, in Lausanne, Switzerland. She was 63 years old and had undergone surgery for colon cancer in November. Her death from cancer was announced by UNICEF. Her last screen role in 1989 was a cameo as an angel, easing the hero toward death in Steven Spielberg's Always, a role in which the character's grace and serenity echoed the image Miss Hepburn had maintained throughout a 40-year career. Plays that she did were Gigi and Ondine. Films that she is credited with are One Wild Oat, Young Wives' Tale, Laughter in Paradise, The Lavender Hill Mob, Monte Carlo Baby, The Secret People, Roman Holiday, Sabrina, War and Peace, Funny Face, Love in the Afternoon, Green Mansions, The Nun Story, The Unforgiven, Breakfast at Tiffany's, The Children's Hour, Charade, Paris When It Sizzles, My Fair Lady, How to Steal a Million, Two for the Road, Wait Until Dark, Robin and Marion, Bloodline, They All Laughed, and finally, Always. I hope you've enjoyed my little background on Audrey Hepburn. And if there are any movie stars out there that you would like for Craving Cinematics Remembers to cover, please leave us a message in the comments section, and we will be glad to produce a Craving Cinematic Remembers just for you. This is Kelly Hutchings. I hope you have a great afternoon.